My last phylum are the chordates, Phylum Chordata. Four key features appear in the embryo and sometimes in the adult. So before I showed you gastrulation of a zebrafish, showing you the different germ layers, those cells moving to a specific spot during gestation, during development, and those cells will eventually become different tissues. So maybe that's the gut, maybe that's the skin, maybe that's going to be nervous tissue, the brain, the spinal cord, all the different chordates in this phylum look very similar as they're growing in the embryo. So the four key features that we see are having a dorsal, let me get my pointer, a dorsal hollow nerve cord. So this is going to show as the central nervous system overall. So here's a growing embryo. I forget what animal I'm showing you guys here. I guess it doesn't matter. It's a chordate nonetheless. Could be a human, could be a chicken, it could be a fish. So here's going to be the dorsal hollow nerve cord. This will eventually become nervous tissue, aka central nervous tissue, so the brain and the spine for these guys. A notochord is also evident in all chordates. Here's the notochord located in a similar position in all chordates. This will become the vertebral column. So this is going to become bone. This is going to become the backbone in particular. It's also going to become some cartilage in other invertebrates because not all chordates are vertebrates. Okay. Pharyngeal slits are also seen. So here I can see some openings in this growing embryo. These pharyngeal slits are present in all embryos. It's even present in us. These become gills in some animals. And us, as you can imagine, the gills never developed. They got lost over time. They become something else, not gills. They basically become part of our ear, nose, throat kind of area that I won't go into too much detail, kind of that eustachian tube anatomical portion of our bodies. A post-anal tail is also seen. So here's a post-anal tail. Basically what I mean by that is an extension of the growing embryo. So I can actually see here that the notochord doesn't keep going. The anus ends here, so it's a post-anus tail. It's an extension of that growing embryo. We have that too. Body segmentation is very apparent in the backbone of vertebrates. This is going to basically lead to segmented muscles. So here are all of our chordates. We have a common ancestor of all chordates along the evolutionary timeline, and as we see, if I kind of go downwards here from this phylogenetic tree, I can actually see the appearance of the homologous structure of vertebral column. So everything to the right of that will have a vertebra, a backbone. Those guys that didn't come to the right, so I can see tunicates here and lanceolets, they are not going to have that vertebral column. These are my invertebrates, my lanceolets and my tunicates. I can see jaws appearing, legs, and so forth. As I talk about these different chordates, I want you to appreciate those homologous structures, where they are appearing on the timeline. Okay, so everything else besides lanceolets and tunicates are going to have a backbone. These are my vertebrates, my hagfishes, lampreys, cartilaginous fishes, bony fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. They are all going to have vertebrates and a backbone. Hagfishes are grouped for lacking jaws. They are the first vertebrates to appear on the evolutionary timeline. Cartilaginous fishes are named so for the reason that they have a flexible skeleton. That skeleton is not composed of that hardened boned structure that you and I have. It's actually a cartilage that's going to help form that skeleton for them for protection and locomotion. Bony fishes are different in that they have a skeleton that is reinforced by calcium. More hardened structure. Okay, moving on, amphibians, and I wish I could spend more time on the chordates, really with all these animals with you guys. If you want to go through your textbook, they definitely give more information, especially with the echinoderms and that water canal, circulatory system, all these different chordates that goes into so much more detail than I have time for in this class. And it's not because of the pandemic, it's because of just the content that I have to teach you guys. I wish I could discuss all of these in more detail because there's so much more to learn for these guys. So please, I implore you to explore yourself and learn about these different animals in this kingdom. Okay, but moving on along the phylogenetic tree, we have legs that appear, that locomotion structure. Really, I'm talking about tetrapods having 4 feet become available, and it's amphibians that are the first animal to show tetrapodia. So showing you this event, this evolutionary event over time. So amphibians are named so for the reason that they have a dual life. They're amphibious in their life form, and that amphibians are both aquatic and terrestrial. They begin their life cycle as aquatic, they end as terrestrial, and they kind of go between both worlds. So that's pretty cool. Well, amphibians then, through this evolutionary event, were able to acquire that means of having 4 legs. This is known as tetrapodia. So as I mentioned, their early life cycle require water. All eggs by amphibians will be laid in a water environment. Metamorphosis is achieved, and we have a huge change in body plan and function from going from aquatic larva to the terrestrial adult. Next homologous structure that comes up is the amniotic egg. The amniotic egg is a fluid-filled water shell that's encased the developing embryo. So the eggs that amphibians are going to lay in that water environment, they have that water medium for that egg to grow in. Well, what if you want to lay eggs on land and not have to go in an aquatic environment? Reptiles were able to achieve this by exhibiting the amniotic egg. So what if that egg is protected in an aquatic-like environment that I make myself? That's what they do. To show you this amniotic egg, I can actually see the growing embryo. There's my chordate with those 4 structures that I can see here. That postanal tail, the notochord, the dorso-holochord, pharyngeal slits, so forth. And I can actually see the embryo being protected and surrounded by the amnion. That's that fluid-filled sac. So it's still in an aquatic environment, and then this hardened shell-like structure protects that growing embryo. We actually see that event occur on the evolutionary timeline. Reptiles have achieved this quite beautifully. Reptiles are known for having scaled waterproof skin. This prevents dehydration. We now have an animal that's terrestrial, and so that's a very dry environment. And so they actually have these structures that are going to help prevent dehydration in order to perform life functions. So think of your snakes, lizards, turtles, crocodiles, alligators, birds. Birds, actually notice that there's no avis group here in my chordates. Your book actually groups them under reptiles. I've seen this done a couple of different ways. Depends on the textbook. Yours groups them under reptiles, so I'm going to teach it that way. Last up, we have mammals, my last chordate that I want to discuss with you guys. So mammals actually also have, if not an amniotic egg, they also have the amnion. So instead of the egg, we have the uterus for most mammals. One of them has this egg, a quite weird mammal, but for the most part, their growing embryo is going to be contained in the uterus, so inside of the body, and in the body, the amniotic sac does form, so it's still very similar to that amniotic egg that reptiles are shown to have. Mammals are named and grouped for the reason that they have, and only for the reason that they have, mammary glands. Mammary glands produce milk. This is the event of lactation in order to feed their young and provide them those energy needs. In addition, mammals have hair. That adaptation shows along the evolutionary timeline that's going to help warm the body in different climates.